So this is my Top Fuel. This is 5. This is the bottom model that they sell. These things generally go for around 22, I think, to maybe 24. A couple thoughts on this bike now that I've got like 1,500 miles on it. It's like, who is this bike for? Who should be buying this bike? I think Trek has a really good setup in this bike. This one is 120 front and rear suspension, 120 millimeters front and rear suspension. I think the next gen, they're bumping it a little bit. I think they're doing 130 in the front. I'm not quite sure. But I think, in my opinion, this is the bike that most people getting into mountain biking should be looking at. I think a lot of people look at the Fuel EX because it has more suspension travel and think it's going to be a better bike. But really, unless you're really in the terrain that requires the more suspension, this is a better pedaling bike, more efficient, faster. And even though this is the 5, and it has, you know, the entry-level stuff on it, it handles very, very well. And it handles stuff that I didn't think that it could handle. That I, like, you know, having ridden a motorcycle for many, many years, you know, stuff that I thought would break a bicycle doesn't break a bicycle. It took a while. My brain was stuck in this is a bicycle, this isn't a motorcycle, don't huck it off serious crap because you're going to break something. But that's not the case at all. It took me a while to figure that out. And it's a very composed bike over rough terrain, as long as it's not too extreme. But I think that with the lineup they have of this model, you know, you can go anything from a carbon fiber frame if you want to really spend the money, get better components, better suspension, better gear sets and everything. But if you don't have the money and you just want a solid bike for $2,200, this thing will do it, and it does it really well. And the way that the suspension is set up is it's efficient when it's under power. So if you're pedaling this bike, it's almost like on a motorcycle when you can use your throttle and acceleration to stiffen up the rear suspension. That's kind of how it behaves, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's how it behaves. I've had to do a couple things to it. I've been through, this is my second chain on it. I've been through a set of tires already. I had the XR2s on it when I first got it. Now I'm running the Barzo and the Mezcal, and I'm not liking this Barzo. The Mezcal seems to be okay. I'm not really liking that Barzo. I was having some issues with wrist pain from riding, so I had to do I went with 60 mil bars just for a little while here to kind of take some of the weight off of my wrists as I ride. I'm probably going to go back soon to the original bars that came with it, but yeah, it's still fast with the 60s on it. You know, I generally run I try and do like a 15 mile loop in the trails that I ride, and they're basically flat. I might do maybe 150, 250 foot elevation over that distance, and I'm averaging like 15.3 is one of my best, but I'm usually at about a 14.6. Between a 14.6 and a 15.3 over 15 miles. So this bike is fast. It is a fast bike, even though it's heavy. It's a heavy bike. As I have it set up here, it's about 35 pounds. So in like the race mountain bike world, that's heavy. But I think that I might even race this once this year in the senior class, just because I think I'm gonna do well on it. And it has lockouts on the suspension, but I never use them. I never ever use them. If I was going to go somewhere and I knew I was going to be doing a lot of jumping or something, I might dial up the compression on the front here. You've got several settings to lock it out. I would probably stiffen this up a little bit if I was going to go, you know, hardcore stuff. But I can't fault this bike. I really like this bike, and now I told, you know, my wife, if I get 2,000 miles on this bike, or when I get 2,000 miles on this bike, I was probably going to start looking for another bike. And I've been looking, and, you know, I want something that's similar to this. And I've looked at a lot of bikes, and I'm not convinced that I need anything, you know, than this. And I'm thinking at this point I just might start upgrading components and just keep riding this bike, because I don't have many faults with this bike. A little bit of a climb, then you get a little bit, this park's mostly flat, but a little bit of a downhill. So that's my thoughts on it. This is the medium large frame. I'm about 6 foot, maybe 5'11", about 160. And, you know, Trek has on their website where you can dial in your bike, you put in the model you have, how much you weigh, and it'll tell you how much air pressure to put in the forks, how much air pressure to put in the shocks, factory rebound and settings for everything to set it up to get you started. And I found that they're pretty spot on with what they have. The only thing I have done is, because of the terrain I ride in, there's not a lot of jumps, but there is a lot of roots. I've gone a little bit lighter on the air pressure on the rear shock. And that's just a softer ride, personal preference for me, and it doesn't slow me down any. I've also been under the impression that, you know, coming from regular tires that have tubes in them to tubeless, these come set up tubeless, these Top Fuels, that my natural tendency was to go higher pressure on the tires, and totally learned that's not the way to do it. You know, I was generally running like as high as like 26, 27 in the rear, and for my weight, that's a little too much. And I found out running through Strava in my times that I'm actually faster with a lower pressure. So, you know, in the front I'm about 20, 21, and in the back I'm about 22, 23, and I found that's the smoothest, most compliant stuff over like routes like this and stuff, and still is very, very fast. So the shifting has been spot on. I haven't had any issues with the shifting at all. Haven't had any issues with the dropper post. I didn't think I would ever want a dropper post, but after having one, I don't really use it for the downhill stuff. I do a couple like little downhill runs that are a little bit jumped and rooted out, and I don't even drop the post for that. The only time I drop the post is to get on and off the bike. But I found out that what's nice about it is I can give this to my wife, and she loves this bike because she was on a hardtail, and I put her on this, and she was like, whew, she wants full suspension now. But, you know, you can customize the seat height without having to get wrenches out. And that's a beautiful thing that I can just hand this to her and tell her, here, put the seat wherever you want it, and ride it like that, and you can adjust on the fly. Downside, the bottle cage is in the wrong spot. You can only put the small water bottle in there, and there's only one. So that's a kind of a gripe. But, you know, had to put fenders on it, especially the front, because the tires were throwing stuff right up my face and my eyes and everything else. So that was a definite must do. I did one in the rear just to keep stuff off of the linkage. And I did the WTB Volt seat. I'd highly recommend these seats. These seats are awesome. You can get these set up in different widths, different materials, be it titanium or whatever, depending on how much you want to spend. But this one was like one of the cheaper models, and I didn't spend a lot of money on it. I can't remember if it was like 30 or 40 bucks for this seat, probably not even that much. But the thing about these WTB Volt saddles is the shape. It's like a cup shape, so other saddles would have me sliding off the front, and if I tried to raise the front up more, then didn't feel right. But these, the way they're shaped, you can set them almost flat, and they keep you in the same position. So I highly recommend these WTB Volt saddles. I know a lot of the other brands are selling the bikes with those saddles on them now, but you can pick them up off Amazon for pretty cheap. And like I said, you can change the width to, you know, whatever size your butt is that you need. But so that's my thoughts on it. It's been a great bike. I will probably have 2,000 miles. Let's spring. I'll probably have 2,000 miles on this by fall, I would say. So thinking about, you know, a better shock for it. That might be one of the first things I do. Forks maybe, but like I said, where I ride, I just like to go fast, and I'm just looking for something that's, you know, smooth as I'm rolling through the roots and the rocks and stuff, and you know, little jumps. I don't do anything big anymore, but I think this is the overlooked model in the Trek lineup. Like I said, I think most people pull the trigger on the Fuel EX because they think more suspension travel is better, when really this is probably a better choice for most people.